The Glacier has pulled back like a slow curtain, exposing what it held for 80 years. A torn section of hull rises from the ice field, dark metal scarred by decades of pressure and cold. The ship's starboard side angles upward at 15 degrees, locked in frozen sediment that runs beneath the surface like roots. Ice clings to every plate and rivet, translucent in some places, opaque in others, but through a massive fracture in the cargo hold wall, something waits in the shadows. The breach is wide enough to enter. Edges of the torn steel curl inward, bent by forces that happened long before the ice arrived. This was not a clean break. The metal shows stress fractures radiating from impact points, the kind of damage that comes from rocks or shallow reefs rather than torpedoes or shells. Whatever drove this ship into these waters did so with enough force to crack the hull, but not enough to sink it outright. Stepping through the opening, the temperature drops. The air inside carries a metallic cold, sharper than the wind outside. The first cargo deck stretches forward into darkness, and in that darkness, shapes emerge. Rows of vehicles sit motionless under layers of frost. Jeeps, trucks, staff cars, all of them facing the same direction, all of them exactly where they were parked in 1943. The forward hold runs nearly 60 meters deep, a steel cavern filled with military hardware frozen in position. The first vehicle is a Willys MB Jeep, its olive drab paint dulled by frost but still visible beneath the ice. The windshield frame stands upright, and through the clouded glass, the interior remains intact. Canvas seats show no rot, no mold, only the brittle stiffness that comes from decades at subzero temperatures. Next to it, a Dodge WC series truck sits with its cargo bed still loaded. Wooden crates rest under a tarp that has crystallized into a solid sheet. The truck's tires, incredibly, remain inflated. Every vehicle in this row faces forward, angled slightly to maximize deck space. Between them, wooden chocks remain wedged against tires, and chains run from axles to deck-mounted anchor points. This was a loading pattern designed for rough seas, for convoys that expected U-boat attacks and winter storms. The crew who secured these vehicles knew they were heading into dangerous waters. The floor beneath is solid ice, formed from decades of moisture seeping through hull fractures and refreezing in layers. Walking across it produces a faint cracking sound, but the ice holds. It has become part of the ship now, a secondary structure that keeps everything locked in place. Further along the hold, more vehicles emerge from the shadows. A GMC CCKW cargo truck, its 6 wheels still gripping wooden planks laid across the deck for traction. 2 more Jeeps, their hoods latched, headlights covered with canvas wraps to prevent damage during transport. A Dodge command car with its radio antenna still mounted, though the equipment inside would have been removed before loading. None of them show signs of panic or hasty abandonment. There are no open doors, no scattered equipment, no evidence that the crew tried to offload cargo in an emergency. Whatever happened to this ship, it did not give the men aboard time to strip the holds. The arrangement of vehicles follows a doctrine taught to every port battalion in the Army Service Forces. Heaviest cargo goes lowest and centered to maintain stability. Lighter vehicles fill outer sections. Every machine is positioned to allow access from at least 2 sides in case repairs are needed during the voyage. The pattern here shows that discipline held even under pressure. Chains securing the vehicles are standard Navy issue, tensioned with turnbuckles that still show their final adjustments. Wooden chocks are made from dense hardwood, probably oak or birch, cut to precise angles. Each truck bed faces the same direction so that offloading, if it ever happened, could proceed in a single flow from stern to bow. The military called this combat loading, a system designed to get equipment onto beaches in the fastest possible sequence. Between the rows, narrow walkways remain clear. A crew would have patrolled these spaces during the voyage, checking tie-downs and watching for cargo shifts. Small details remain exactly as they were left. A coil of rope hangs from a bulkhead hook. A fire extinguisher sits mounted near the forward hatch, its red paint still visible under frost. A pair of work gloves lies draped over a crate, fingers stiff and frozen mid-curl. The vehicles themselves tell a secondary story. These are not frontline combat models fresh from factories. Several Jeeps show wear on their steering wheels and seats, the kind that comes from training exercises or rear echelon use. The trucks have unit markings partially visible under ice, faded stencils that indicate prior assignment to logistics companies or transport battalions. This was not a shipment of new equipment heading to an invasion force. This was a resupply run, moving vehicles from one theater to another, or perhaps returning them from a completed operation. One detail stands out. Every vehicle has its fuel tank drained. This was standard practice for transport, reducing fire risk if the ship took damage. It also suggests the loading was done properly by crews who followed protocol, who expected this shipment to arrive safely wherever it was meant to go. The door on the first Jeep opens with resistance, hinges stiff from cold but not rusted. Inside, the driver's seat holds the shape of whoever last sat there, canvas compressed in the center, edges still crisp. The steering wheel is wrapped in leather, now hard as stone. Dashboard gauges are frozen at 0, needles locked in place. A gear shift protrudes from the floor, and beneath it, the metal transmission housing shows no corrosion, only the dull gray of steel preserved by freezing air. In the glove compartment, folded papers rest undisturbed. Maps. They show coastlines and grid coordinates, place names marked in pencil. One map covers the North Atlantic convoy routes. Another focuses on the Norwegian coast and the Barents Sea approaches. Red circles mark positions, though their meaning is unclear now. Weather tables are clipped to the back of one map, handwritten notes listing wind speeds and ice warnings from early November 1943. The next vehicle, a Dodge command car, reveals more. Its rear bench holds a canvas bag, and inside that bag, a logbook. The pages are brittle, but legible. Entries detail maintenance schedules, fuel consumption, and a list of drivers assigned to the vehicle over several months. The last entry is dated October 28, 1943. It records an oil change and notes that the vehicle is being prepared for transport to Station Baker, a code name that does not appear in the maps. One of the cargo trucks yields the most telling discovery. The rear gate drops with a metallic groan, and inside, wooden crates are stacked 3 high. Stenciled markings identify the contents. Spare parts, radiator hoses, fan belts, gaskets, and filters. One crate holds engine blocks, another contains tire pumps and patch kits. This was not combat cargo. This was the logistical backbone of mechanized warfare, the supplies that kept vehicles running far from repair depots and factories. Beneath the crates, a toolbox sits open. Wrenches, pliers, screwdrivers, all standard Army issue. A metal canteen rests beside it, cap screwed tight. Lifting it produces a faint sloshing sound. Water, frozen solid inside. The final vehicle in this section is a staff car, a larger sedan-style model used by officers. Its interior is more refined. Bench seats with stitched upholstery, a small map light mounted on the ceiling, and a clipboard wedged between the seats. The The clipboard holds a manifest, a typed list of vehicles and their assigned destinations. Most entries are routine, but one line is marked with a handwritten note in the margin. Reroute north, weather delay, proceed to alternate port. No signature, no date, just an order that changed the course of this entire shipment. The middle deck is less preserved. The Glacier's movement sheared away part of the superstructure here, leaving open sky above and twisted metal beams hanging at wrong angles. But enough remains to piece together the ship's identity. A cargo manifest is still bolted to a bulkhead, the metal plate corroded but readable. It lists the vessel as SS Arcturus, a Liberty-class freighter converted for military transport in 1942. Liberty ships were mass-produced workhorses, built fast and cheap to replace tonnage lost to U-boats. They were not elegant, not comfortable, but they moved cargo across oceans when the war needed it most. Arcturus was one of over 2,700 such ships launched between 1941 and 1945, and like many of them, it was pressed into service carrying everything from tanks to food rations, wherever the need was greatest. Another marking appears near the galley entrance. A painted number, partially obscured by ice, identifies this ship as part of Convoy HX267. Records from that convoy show it departed New York in late October 1943, bound for the United Kingdom with over 40 merchant vessels and a destroyer escort. HX convoys were high priority, carrying troops, vehicles, and supplies to prepare for operations in Europe. Arcturus was listed as one of the slower vessels in the group, lagging behind the main formation by the time the convoy reached the mid-Atlantic. Inside the crew quarters, more evidence surfaces. Bunks line the walls, their mattresses long since compressed into flat boards. Personal effects remain scattered. A wool coat hangs from a peg, its fabric brittle but intact. A pair of boots sits beneath a bunk, laces still tied. On a small table, a tin cup and a pack of playing cards rest undisturbed, the cards frozen together in a single block. A notice board near the galley holds orders and schedules. Most are routine, shift assignments, and mealtimes, but one typed memo stands out. It instructs the crew to prepare for detachment from the convoy on November 2nd. The ship is to proceed independently to Reykjavik, Iceland, to deliver cargo marked as high-priority cold weather equipment. The memo warns of increased U-boat activity in the Denmark Strait and advises maintaining radio silence except in emergencies. This explains the deviation. Arcturus left the convoy, struck out alone toward Iceland, and somewhere in those waters, something went wrong. The bridge sits exposed to the elements. The Glacier's retreat tore away the roof and part of the port side wall, leaving the command deck open to wind and snow. But the interior fittings remain. The helm stands in the center, a large wooden wheel with brass fittings now green with patina. The binnacle beside it holds a compass, the needle frozen pointing northwest. Charts are spread across the navigation table, held down by metal weights. Ice has fused them to the surface, but the markings are clear. A course is plotted from the convoy's last known position toward the southern coast of Iceland. Pencil lines show bearings and distance calculations. Notations in the margins record time checks and speed estimates. The final mark on the chart is a small X placed near the edge of the Denmark Strait with a note beside it. Heavy ice, visibility 0, engines reduced. The logbook sits beside the charts, frozen open to its last page. The final entry is dated November 4th, 1943, at 0340 hours. It records sea conditions as severe, with ice forming on the deck and visibility dropping to less than 100 yards. The entry notes that the ship has reduced speed to avoid collision with ice flows and that the radio is being kept silent per orders. The last line reads, "Course correction to avoid ice field, bearing 340 degrees." That was the mistake. Turning northwest put the ship directly toward the Greenland coast, where glaciers meet the sea and shallow reefs lurk beneath the surface. In darkness, in a storm, with no radio contact and no visibility, Arcturus ran aground. The radio equipment sits silent in the corner of the bridge. The transmitter is intact, dials and switches still in place, but the power cables are disconnected. Someone shut it down deliberately, following the convoy orders for radio silence. That silence meant no distress call, no SOS, no way for the convoy or coastal stations to know the ship was in trouble. Near the helm, a pair of binoculars hangs from a strap. Lifting them reveals ice crystals on the lenses, but through the eyepieces, the view is clear. From this position, the crew would have seen the ice field approaching, would have watched the massive shapes of glaciers rising from the dark water, would have felt the moment the hull struck rock and the ship shuddered to a stop. The hull damage tells the rest. Moving outside, along the starboard side, the fractures become clear. A section of plating near the bow is crumpled inward, the metal folded like paper where the ship struck submerged rocks. The impact was not catastrophic, not enough to flood the holds immediately, but it trapped the vessel in shallow water. The crew likely tried to reverse engines to pull free, but the rocks held. November in the Denmark Strait brings ice fast. Within hours, the water around Arcturus would have started to freeze. Within days, the ship would have been locked in place, immobile, surrounded by a growing field of sea ice. The crew had two choices: abandon ship and attempt to reach land on foot, or stay aboard and hope for rescue. The evidence suggests they stayed. The lifeboats are still mounted in their davits, secured and unused. The crew quarters show no signs of hurried packing. The galley holds supplies, canned goods, and dry stores, enough to last weeks if rationed carefully. They believed help would come, or that the ice would break when spring arrived. But the Glacier had other plans. The ice field surrounding the ship did not melt in spring. Instead, it expanded, pushed forward by the advancing glacier behind it. Year by year, the ice crept closer until it covered the ship entirely. The glacier consumed Arcturus, buried it under meters of ice and snow, and carried it slowly inland as the glacier itself moved. For 80 years, the ship rode with the glacier, frozen solid, hidden beneath the surface. Only now, as warming temperatures forced the glacier to retreat, has the ice released its grip. The ship emerges not where it sank, but kilometers from the original grounding site, deposited on land as the glacier pulls back toward the mountains. Unlike shipwrecks on the ocean floor, these vehicles show no rust. Salt water destroys metal through oxidation, turning steel to flaking red powder within decades. But here, frozen in dry air, the vehicles remain structurally sound. Paint is intact. Rubber has crystallized but not disintegrated. Glass is clouded but unbroken. The engine blocks, visible when hoods are lifted, show no corrosion. Pistons sit frozen in their cylinders, oil turned to a waxy solid in the crankcases. Spark plugs are still threaded into place, wires still connected to distributors. If these engines were thawed slowly and carefully, if fresh fluids were added and moving parts freed, some might even turn over. The tires are the most surprising element. Rubber degrades in sunlight, in heat, in the presence of oxygen. But here, in the absence of all three, the tires have simply frozen. They are rock hard, inflexible, but their treads are still visible. their sidewalls still intact. The cold has stopped time at the molecular level, preventing the chemical reactions that normally break down organic materials. Inside the cargo crates, more surprises wait. Canvas tarps, normally prone to mildew and rot, are brittle but whole. Wooden planks show no signs of insect damage or decay. Metal tools are pristine, their surfaces unmarked by rust. Even the ropes and chains show minimal wear, their fibers preserved by the same freezing conditions that saved the vehicles. This is preservation on a scale rarely seen outside permafrost or high-altitude ice caves. The glacier has functioned as a deep freeze, maintaining temperatures so low that biological and chemical processes effectively cease. What remains is not a wreck in the traditional sense, but a snapshot, a frozen moment from 1943 that has traveled through time intact. The cargo aboard Arcturus tells a story about the logistics of global war. These vehicles were not frontline weapons. They were the infrastructure of modern combat, the trucks and jeeps and staff cars that moved supplies, transported officers, and kept armies mobile. For every tank or bomber that fought in World War II, dozens of support vehicles worked behind the lines, and those vehicles required constant maintenance, repair, and replacement. The presence of cold weather equipment suggests this shipment was destined for operations in the Arctic or subarctic regions. The Allies maintained bases in Iceland, Greenland, and northern Norway throughout the war, using them to monitor U-boat movements, protect convoy routes, and prepare for potential operations in Scandinavia. Vehicles operating in those climates needed specialized parts, lubricants that would not freeze, and components designed to withstand extreme cold. The manifest mentions Station Baker, a code name that does not appear in most historical records. This suggests a classified or temporary installation, possibly a weather station or a signals intelligence post. Such facilities were vital to the war effort, but operated with minimal documentation to protect their locations from enemy reconnaissance. The decision to reroute Arcturus independently, breaking away from the convoy, shows the constant balancing act of wartime logistics. Convoys were safer but slower, and sometimes individual ships were ordered to take risks in order to deliver time-sensitive cargo. In this case, that risk proved fatal, not because of enemy action, but because of weather, ice, and the unforgiving geography of the North Atlantic. The fate of the crew remains unknown. No bodies have been found aboard the ship, which suggests they either abandoned the vessel after it grounded or were evacuated by a passing patrol. Records from the period are incomplete, and many small incidents were never fully documented. Arcturus likely became just another name on a list of missing vessels, one of hundreds lost to weather, ice, and the hazards of northern waters during the war. The Glacier has kept the ship in suspension for 80 years, holding it in a cold darkness where time moves differently. The vehicles inside are not ruins. They are not corroded wrecks like those found on the ocean floor. They are artifacts, preserved so completely that they seem only temporarily abandoned, as if the crews might return at any moment to finish loading, to start the engines, to drive these machines off the deck and onto solid ground. But they will not return. The war they fought is 8 decades past, and the men who loaded these vehicles, who secured the chains and checked the tie-downs, who plotted the course and wrote the final log entry, are gone. What remains is this ship, this cargo, this frozen record of a moment when a storm and a navigation error sent a vessel into ice that would not release it for most of a century. As the Glacier continues to retreat, more of the ship will be exposed. The stern section may still be locked in ice further upslope, and with it, more cargo, more equipment, more pieces of the story. researchers will document everything, cataloging each vehicle, each crate, each personal item left behind. Historians will cross-reference the manifest with Convoy records, trying to fill in the gaps about where Arcturus was going and why. But some questions will remain unanswered. Why did the captain choose to turn northwest instead of holding course? Did the crew survive the grounding? And if so, how long did they wait before help arrived? What happened to the classified cargo marked for Station Baker? And what was that station's purpose? The Glacier has given back what it took, but slowly, piece by piece, revealing the past at its own pace. This ship is not lost anymore. It is found, but finding it does not mean understanding it completely. Some stories are written in ice, and ice holds its secrets until the very end, until the last fragment melts and the last question is answered. For now, Arcturus sits where the Glacier left it, a steel monument to a forgotten chapter of the war, surrounded by vehicles that wait in the cold, preserved and patient, holding their formation exactly as they were ordered to 80 years ago.